What's up, dudes? Max here. I've had an incredibly busy past couple of days between running up to NorCal to visit the Bandai Namco offices, between running a big Dragon Ball stream for the launch of the game today, and just now am I finally able to make a video, show some footage, and talk to you all about Soul Calibur 6, because I spent a good, probably solid 3 hours playing this game, and I have a lot I would like to talk to you about, so let's get right into it.
A single slash can cut even the frozen air in two.
Soul Edge belongs in my hands.
The nightmare will devour your soul!
Battle 1. Fight!
I guess my initial impressions would probably be a really good idea. I did not get a chance to see the trailer, the latest 4-character trailer. It was debuted while I was on the plane up to NorCal, and I never got a chance to see it. Instead, I saw pretty much everything that was in the trailer live while I was playing, and some of it blew my mind. The Demon Horse thing with Nightmare, the crazy cinematic supers, the power-ups, like with the stuff that's going on with Kalik, I lost my mind when I saw this stuff happening in person, because I was nowhere near expecting that this game would be as over-the-top as it is. And if there's one thing I can tell you from a lot of the time I spent playing Soul Calibur 6, the guy that went from Tekken, one of the lead guys who made Tekken, actually moved over to Soul Calibur in the middle of its development, and you can absolutely tell between a lot of the presentation values, that stuff is preserved in Soul Calibur 6. The hit sparks, the sound of the hits, the crazy supers, like the critical arts, are absolutely insane in this game. They really wanted to push the boundaries of a weapon fighter, similar to what they did between the Tekken games to Tekken 7, how everything has giant hit sparks and the moves like really feel very impactful. That stuff is absolutely here. I kind of want to get a bit more general, and I'll give reasons why I feel this way about it, but between the final 3 hours, I was playing with a few other people that had very similar impressions in Soul Calibur, that the last few entries in the series had been okay games, but they really didn't feel that, like, you know, that energy that the Soul Calibur games kind of used to have with Soul Calibur 1 and Soul Calibur 2. But by the end of this play session, man, I was really getting like a direct feeling and relating that with the people that were around me playing this for the first time, that it feels like Soul Calibur is back. It's been well over 10 years that Soul Calibur has kind of been in a very weird state from Soul Calibur 4 and beyond, if not Soul Calibur 3 and kind of beyond, and for a lot of people's consideration. But Soul Calibur 1 and 2 are the ones that everyone loves, and this game very, very, very much feels like Soul Calibur 2 in many ways, just with more crazy stuff the characters can do. For me, it was kind of interesting because the roster isn't huge, and there was a new character in there which I did spend quite a bit of time with, but for the sake of Nightmare and for the sake of Mitsurugi, which are the two that I think I have the most familiarity with, especially, you know, Soul Calibur 2 and prior Nightmare, where he's like Siegfried, and then Mitsurugi, who I played a lot in Soul Calibur 1 and 2, especially 1. Mitsurugi has a lot of different stuff, and I know he changed a lot in the games going forward, so it just could be a lot of unfamiliarity on my part. But for the most part, yeah, Mitsu had a lot of unique feels to him, and while I didn't understand everything that was going on with him, I was really enjoying playing the character because he did feel kind of unique, especially with this game and the buffs and the power-ups and the supers and everything like that. Nightmare in Soul Calibur 6 is absolutely Soul Calibur 3 and beyond Nightmare, where Nightmare became a unique character over Siegfried instead of just an additional character. And yes, I know you can knock all the armor off everybody, and if you actually knock the armor off Nightmare, specifically his headpiece and specifically his body piece, he looks almost identical to Soul Calibur 2 Nightmare, the one that you get where Siegfried is actually underneath there and you don't wear the armor one. He looks identical to that, just like way better in currently modern graphics and everything. Oh, I saw that and I lost my shit. I'll be brutally honest with you, Siegfried is one of my favorite fighting game characters of all time, but Nightmare Soul Calibur 2 Siegfried, that specific costume where he's like, you know, bare-chested and you see the Soul Edge taking over his body, that shit is so sick. And It's here, man. It's here. In terms of playing the character, I don't think Nightmare had nearly as many stances. He seemed to have access to quite a bit more stances like Siegfried had in, Nightmare had in Soul Calibur 2. You can do like a back stance and you can run towards the opponent. Like a lot of crazy mobility while in stance, which was really nice. I hadn't played a lot of the Nightmare archetype character beyond Soul Calibur 3 going into 4 and 5. And I know he's very different, and I always wanted to get good with him. I just never had an opportunity. And some of the stuff that I was doing with this character as I was learning things was just absolutely ridiculous. He really doesn't play like Siegfried. And if we're talking like the Siegfried we know from prior games, like Soul Calibur 1 and 2, when Nightmare was Siegfried, that is how Siegfried kind of got carried over into the future games. And then Nightmare became his own character. This one plays like the newer Nightmare, like the actual appropriate. He doesn't play like Siegfried very much, but he does get a couple of crazy things with those, you know, those different stances that you can go into, which I love about Soul Calibur 2.
Atonement for the sin of weakness.
One of the greatest things about Nightmare is that he looks freaking sick. His super is freaking sick. And the thing I gotta mention to all of you, because those are the characters I actually understand, I did play a little bit of X, I did play a little bit of Sophia, however you want to pronounce it, and I did play Grow, and I absolutely loved Grow. I've always wanted a character in Soul Calibur that was a double saber type of character, and this guy is quite literally a Phantasy Star Online double saber incarnate. Like, if you ever played PSO, he's a double cannon in human form. It's hilarious. And the coolest part about him is that he can actually separate the swords into a somewhat stance. It's more like a move and kind of a stance, but we didn't have move lists available to us. We just kind of had to hit buttons and start figuring out what's going on. He had certain strings that would lead into swords coming apart, and then do hits with the swords apart, and then put the sword back together. He had launchers where he would take the sword apart and then hit you in the air and beat you up a whole bunch, and then put the sword back together and hit you even more. It looked freaking cool, man. I really dug Grow. He looked kind of generic when I first saw him, but as I started playing as him, he's sick, dude. He's like an assassin-style character in the game. He might have, like, Cloud Strife's voice, his English VA. I'm not too sure. But I love his super. Like, that's one of the things in the game that has been very, very, very much on the edge of, like, keeping me interested in the crazy and bombastic stuff. The critical arts in this game, if you were disappointed with some of them in Tekken 7, this game is freaking insane. Like, you got little critical arts and cool kind of supers in Soul Calibur 4 and 5, and in Soul Calibur 4 they were kind of crazy because you had to knock their armor off and then do a finisher on them. Imagine character finishers in Soul Calibur 4, but now you get them in Soul Calibur 5 and they're pretty much rage arts.
Run away. Your fate is decided.
Press one button, it's the right trigger, and all of a sudden, for the cost of 1 bar, you get to beat the hell out of him and do a crazy, crazy impressive super. And that stuff was pretty, dude, all of them looked really cool. The even crazier part is that some of them are modified. If you go into, let's talk about the other thing that needs meter in this game, which is the Soul Charge. Soul Charge in previous Soul Caliburs would, like, buff your character out for a second with an animation, and you would get access to counter hits in most of the games, from what I remember. In this game, Soul Charge is gone that you remember, and it's been replaced with something else. It's essentially a V-trigger / instinct mode / like install. Your character buffs themselves out, and for a limited period of time, they seem to have more damage, potentially more speed, and a lot of their moves are heavily modified. If not, they have brand new moves that are only available when they're in their Soul Charge. So there's 2 things for you to spend meter on. There's Soul Charge, which costs 1 bar, and there is the big critical edges, critical arts, that also cost 1 bar as well. And I felt that for some characters they were really good. For other characters it was kind of crazy. Like Kalik goes all straight Demon Nikali form, but when he does it, he loses health dramatically, but he dishes out ridiculous health. Like, I swear I killed some enemies within the span of just a few hits. It was insane, but he drops health very, very, very fast, so you have to know you're going to kill him. I just love the way it looks. For some reason, Demon Kalik was something I never knew I wanted, and I think it looks awesome. It also modifies his super. If you do his critical art while you have his Soul Charge activated, you get a completely unique animation to his super, and it's awesome to say the least.
Too close! Ling Shang Super! I strike! Om Vajra Dharma Kilik.
Other than that, the reversal edge system was something I was very worried about. Going into this session, I was actually kind of apathetic about it. I was like kind of wanting to check out the new systems, but sort of worried that they were going to take over the game. And it really seemed like this reversal edge thing would be absolutely everywhere. And I'm going to tell you guys, it will be in early level play, but it absolutely isn't going to be there once you know how it works. Reversal edge is the press of one button. It's R1 on the controllers we were using, and your character essentially does a pose, and during that pose, they will parry certain kinds of attacks. However, it can be broken. I've seen my characters crash through their attacks as they are parrying with some other attacks. I don't actually know what the hell it was, but I have seen it broken in some ways. Otherwise, you see them multiply, like, parry, 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 and then they go into a big attack, and at that point you enter the critical edge state where both your characters are essentially presented with a rock, paper, scissors game where one button beats another, and you get a bunch of damage, if not a combo setup. You can actually go into a launcher and things like that. The crazy thing is that there's many other options you can do within it as well, including dodging. You can dodge like into the screen, away from the screen, forward and back. And that just adds another level of stuff that you can technically do. And if both of you don't want to be offensive and you're kind of worried, because once you're in the critical edge state, you're both on an even playing field. Anyone can make a good call. You can both back off if you want. If you do both choose the same option, interestingly enough, it clashes, and then you come back for a second round. You can't go anything beyond 2 rounds within critical edge if you do choose the same thing. But if you happen to pick the same thing twice in a row, the winner will always be the person who engaged the critical edge doing a whole bunch of damage. So the person who engages the attack obviously gets the damage of the attack at the start, and then you enter critical edge, and then from that point forward, anyone can win. But if you tie twice, it goes in the favor of the person that started it. And that all felt really, really good. My biggest worry is that the critical edge stuff was going to take way too much time, like all this slow-mo and all these characters winding up and everything. It wasn't that bad. Like, even if it's present in the game a lot, the time it takes to complete these things really isn't that bad, and they were ridiculously satisfying when you either dodged attacks or dodged an attack then hit the opponent. Just seeing your character just roll back as the sword plows through, and then your character narrowly misses it and then beats the hell out of them, that feeling was really, really cool. And it seemed like they tried to take the feeling that you get at the end of Tekken matches where the slow-mo kicks in and try to engage it in a combat mechanic. And without making it frustrating, they made something really, really sick. One of the things I was worried about was that it looked like reversal edge was going to be an unblockable style move. Once you hit it, they both went into it. It can absolutely be blocked. It's just a regular vertical attack, but if your opponent's attacking you, they'll just auto parry and then you'll hit them. So it's more of a defensive move in some ways. I believe it can be parried, and I also absolutely know that it is a very linear vertical attack. So guess what beats it? Like the smallest sidestep into the screen or away from the screen. Like it is so easily beatable. In fact, it's extremely punishable. So if you know someone is going for it, you could just sidestep up and then launch and go for whatever the hell you want. So I wouldn't be too worried about it. It's a mechanic that's fun. It'll be utilized in some situations where the opponent isn't ready for it, because if they are going into crazy attack strings and you're blocking a lot and you just want to stop blocking, that's when you want to critical edge and then do the auto parry and then engage in something that'll knock you away from them or return to neutral. Whatever you choose to do is pretty much up to you. But the best part about it is that, man, landing hits in this thing is so freaking cool. Like the interactions the characters have when they are clashing forward and running forward. Imagine a kind of somewhat more but not nearly as flashy dynamic of like Injustice where the character clashes happen. It's sort of like that, but it's engaged on something that can be used at any time, but is extremely punishable. That's about it, man. And at the end of it, all I really got to say is that I loved it. Like, I loved it. Some of the stuff I was seeing, some of the characters I was playing, and this is such a small build. It was only 2 stages. It was only like 5, 6. I think it was 6 characters with the new guy. It was so little, and I was just having so much fun playing this thing. And I really, it felt weird. Like, I had to remind myself that this is Soul Calibur 6, and then you're immediately reminded when all the crazy, insane, over-the-top, flashy stuff starts happening, and it will look so good. I think graphically, like, if you zoom really in really hard, it still looks early build-ish, but in terms of, like, the effects and the way the hits feel in the game, oh my god, man. I don't think there's anything like it. I think they're doing some crazy stuff right now, and the fact that it can only get better makes me extremely happy. And I'm gonna say it right now, after what I played, I personally feel, dude, Soul Calibur is back, and this is probably my most anticipated game this year that is set to come out in 2018. I absolutely can't wait. That's all I got for this video, guys. I got another video coming up that's going to be 4K resolution of all the footage I took, going over the soul charges, going over the supers, as well as unique clashes the character has and the characters have against each other. You get to see how that stuff kind of looks and works and everything like that. Either way, that's it. Expect a lot of Soul Calibur 6 in the future, because I absolutely can't wait. Thank you dudes a ton for watching. My name is Max, and I'll see you next time.
Suffer my bloodlust!